As it turned out, Sirius did not vomit, either in midair or when they landed at the far end of the Rainbow Bridge, but it was a very close thing.
"Prongs,"
he mumbled, face green.
"That was horrible."
Pansy. Harry wasn't bothered by it in the slightest. In fact, he enjoyed it, Thor mocked. You may be getting old, Pronsy, but as you should have noticed, I'm not your son, Sirius replied testily, gulping in breaths of salty sea air. True, he's better looking than you are. He looks exactly like you, Thor smirked.
Precisely.
Sirius provided him with a rude hand gesture. Why did we stop here, anyway? He asked, straightening up. So I could walk you up, and you could have a look round Asgard City, Thor said. Sirius duly looked, and was quickly absorbed. Asgard City was a study in contrasts. Many of the larger, more important buildings were indicative of, frankly, higher beings, made of smooth golden metal, occasionally interspersed with silvery and coppery tones, and ornate Norse-style designs on the doors, all swirling lines and carefully etched runes, trees, warriors, and animals. They were smooth in their angles and planes, with not a single visible flaw in their design. These had been designed by people who had long since turned it from a profession into an art. He mentioned this, though not in so many words. Blimey, Prongs, these buildings are incredible. It is rare that Sirius Black is struck by architecture, but with architecture like this, it is not surprising. Thor chuckled. Like many things on Asgard, Sirius, architecture is not a profession. It is not. We live so long by mortal standards that we have the time to practice many disciplines, and practice makes perfect. So I see, Sirius said, appreciatively eyeing up a few women. Since Thor had discreetly cast several cleaning charms and transfigured Sirius's clothes into respectable black robes, their looks were more thoughtful than disgusted. Something partly based on the fact that he was in the presence of and treated as a friend by the mighty Thor, Crown Prince of Asgard. Thor followed his gaze and politely nodded. The women gasped and giggled, then started talking amongst themselves. Sirius sighed. I don't have a bloody chance, he complained. No, you're scrawny, you possibly have lice, and you look like you haven't seen sunlight for a decade, Thor said, then tossed his hair. Me, on the other hand, yeah, you're royalty, a hero, and handsome with it, Sirius Mark grumbled. No need to rub it in. And I have a girlfriend, so I'm not interested. Flattered, but not interested. Could you put in a good word for me? Give it a couple months of good food and sunbathing, then I'll consider it. My subjects have to have standards, you know. James? Yes? You're a dick sometimes. I live with my brother and Tony Stark and have had a millennium of practice. I'd be disappointed if I wasn't. There was a moment of silence. Then the two shared a look and grinned. I've missed this, Padfoot. So have I, Prongs. So have I. The walk up to the palace was uneventful. Sirius spent most of his time staring wide-eyed at people, particularly women. Some things, Thor thought, did not change, and drinking in the sights and smells, particularly as they walked through a market. Seeing that Sirius was practically drooling and probably hadn't eaten properly for, well, unless you counted Azkaban, about 12 years, Thor briskly led him to some of the stalls. Sirius watched as his best friend smiled, exchanged greetings, and easily bantered with stallholders, acquiring a large open sandwich laden with smoked fish, a bowl of some sort of delicious-smelling soup, a roll of soft, floury bread to go with it, and a large, honey-slathered, thick pancake. Signing a few invoices, presumably sending the bill up to the palace. Afterwards, Sirius found himself being led further down, laden down with delicious-smelling food, and led into a tavern, where Thor plonked him down at a table and went to the bar, and began to make his way through the crowd. With nothing else to do, he started eating. Being ravenous and having an appetite that made a Labrador's look reasonable, he got through the sandwich, the roll, and 2/3 of the bowl within a matter of 3 minutes. Then something large, hairy, and smelling strongly of badly cured leather and sweat wandered over. You're sitting in my place. It sounded like a small rock slide, and looked like a particularly disreputable and decrepit mountain, all brown and gray with random lumps, rough bits, craggy features that could only have been formed by erosion or a blind, drunken sculptor's apprentice with a chisel, with a couple of small, piggy, gleaming black eyes staring out of it. There were scars, lots of scars, and a complete lack of hair on the figure's skull, which was more than made up for by the abundance of facial hair, which resembled a large, dark, rotting forest. Sirius, having raised his soup bowl to his lips to finish it off, raised a solitary staving-off finger, gulped it down, wiped his face somewhat clean, then said, "Actually, there wasn't anyone here when I sat down. No sign it was someone else's." He shrugged. "Looks like it's mine now." To emphasize the point, he swung his feet up on the bench opposite and smirked insouciantly. The ambulatory mountain growled. Sirius growled back. His was better. He'd had more practice, and it showed in a low, rumbling growl that got half the bar's attention. The mountain hesitated, then his countenance darkened. "I'm not scared of you mangy wolf bastard." Then he swiped at Sirius, who leaned away, dodging the blow, grabbing the bowl as he did and flicking it at the enormous man's face. His hands went up to block the bowl, giving Sirius time to draw his wand and flick. Mr. Mountain shot up into the air by his ankle and hung there. When he opened his mouth, Sirius flicked his wand again. A gag appeared. "Now, I'm here with a friend. I call him James, or Prongs, but you might know him better as Prince Thor," Sirius said casually, pausing to take a bite out of the honey-covered pancake and savor it. The food here is great. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. I'm with Thor, and he left me here." Thor had by now acquired 2 beers, and was making his way across. Sirius waved. "Hi, Thor." Thor raised his eyebrows for 2 reasons. 1, Sirius was calling him Thor. 2, Sirius was talking with his mouth full, an unpleasant sight at the best of times. The floating thug, who was now looking terrified, was sort of expected. Like Loki and Tony, Sirius had a supernatural capacity for chaos, and Thor had half expected to have to break up a large fight. "Sirius, do I even want to know?" "This fat bugger," the thug made an objecting noise. Sirius poked him in the beer gut with his wand. "Oh, shut up, you know it's true," he said, tone dismissive. "Anyway, he claimed I was sitting in his place. Then he attacked me while I was eating, the fat Dementor fucker." This last part was distinctly indignant. Sirius had never been pleased when someone got between him and food. Only now was Thor remembering Sirius's seemingly limitless capacity for creative profanity. Hopefully he could persuade him not to use it around Harry. "Well, I'm sure you've shown him," Thor said, tone placatory. Then, slipping into his older speech patterns as he did, he moved his gaze to the thug, who gulped, which is quite a feat when you're upside down. "Listen well, scoundrel. This man is my friend, and the actions he has taken against you are done so with my blessing. Indeed, they are far less harmful than you deserve for daring to attempt to strike one Thor calls friend and brother. Go, be gone from the city by tomorrow's nightfall. You are no longer welcome in Asgard's citadel." He glanced at Sirius. "Let him down." Sirius, wolfing down the rest of his pancake at nauseating speeds while enjoying the free show, flicked his wand. The thug tumbled to the floor, gave Thor a fearful look, got up, and ran out, stumbling as he did. Thor glanced around the room and then at the barman. "A pint of ale for each man here, barkeep. Send the bill to the palace." Sirius asked, voice muffled by sticky pancake as a ragged cheer went up. "Buy drinks for an entire bar?" "Oh, Sirius began, then paused, swallowed, and said, "Do you often send bills up to the palace?" "More often than not, if I'm in the city. The amount is withdrawn from my extensive private funds, which are largely composed of allowances, gifts, bounties from defeating some villain or other, and income from the lands I officially hold," Thor said. "It's easier than just carrying a money pouch around." He paused. "And the fact I usually forgot a money pouch is, of course, coincidental." Sirius smirked. "Sure it is, Bronx. Sure it is." He paused. "That bloke called me a mangy wolf bastard when I growled at him. What does that mean?" "He mistook you for one of Rimari's subjects, the wolf people. They are shapeshifters, capable of assuming wolven form, Asgardian form, and one halfway between the two at will. Some fear them for their powers," Thor said. "So, like Asgardian werewolves?" Thor shook his head. "They are born, not made, and they have full control of the transformation and themselves during the transformations," he explained. "Do you think they could help Mooney?" "Maybe. We can only try." From then on, the trip up to the palace went by without incident, if you ignored the part where Sirius made faces at the guards to see if they would move, leading Thor to sigh and drag him along. The guards were impassive. They were well used to the weird behavior of Prince Thor's friends, particularly his Midgardian ones. A quick tour of the palace was interrupted by Frigga. Thor! Sirius watched with interest as Thor's face creased into an open and guileless smile, and he strode over to hug the decidedly gorgeous despite her years woman in the very nice and expensive dress. Mother, it's good to see that you're well, Thor said warmly, hugging her. And you too, my son, she said fondly. Speaking of being well, how is my grandson? Why have you not brought him to Asgard? This last was said with a raised eyebrow, and a tone that indicated that this state of affairs would be rectified soon, wouldn't it? Sirius was impressed. In his experience, only Lily and Molly Weasley had ever been able to carry that sort of thing off, and this was borne out by Thorn's reaction. Mother, he said, tone slightly long-suffering. Harry's still adjusting to being my son, and even mortal high society. Asgard would be too much of a shock to his system. The lady smiled, deeply amused. Why, Thor, I thought your brother would be the protective father, shielding his child from the evils of noble lords and ladies, she teased. Thor let out a chuffing sigh and muttered, Is it wrong to care for him so? Her expression softened. No, it is only natural and only right, and it is a sign that you are a good father, Thor. Thor smiled. Now, introduce me to your handsome friend, Frigga said firmly. Thor only then seemed to remember Sirius, who smiled at him. Sirius, this is my mother, Queen Frigga, so for Merlin's sake, Padfoot, behave, Thor said, hissing the last part. Mother, this is Sirius, my dear friend and lord of the House of Black. Your Majesty, it is my pleasure, Sirius said, bowing and kissing her hand. Clearly, James got all his good looks from you, when he's in his Thor form, anyway. You flatter me, Lord Black, Frigga said, smiling. I am glad to meet one more of my son's Midgardian friends. Midgardian means human, Thor supplied, and Sirius nodded his understanding. More? He asked. I joined a superhero team dedicated to protecting Earth, Thor explained. They're called the Avengers, and in many ways they fill the hole that the Marauders left. You and Tony would get along like a house on fire. Chaos, screaming, and massive property destruction are all but guaranteed. Sounds like a kindred spirit, Sirius said cheerfully. This is true, Thor said, sounding like he was already reconsidering the idea of introducing them. Then a stunningly beautiful black-haired woman in armor stepped out of the room off to one side. My lady, she said politely, nodding to Frigga, who smiled. Hello, Sif, Thor greeted her. Sirius wolf-whistled. Hello, gorgeous, he said. Sif raised a solitary eyebrow at Thor, who gave her a decidedly James Potter-like smirk. Bringing home strays again, Thor? She asked dryly. What can I say? I took pity on him, fed him, and now he's followed me home, Thor said casually. Sirius pouted. Thor, are you sure introducing someone who you admit is a kindred spirit of Stark's to him is a good idea? Sif said. Thor shrugged. Should be good for a laugh, he said. And Stark tells me he has excellent insurance premiums, so he should be fine. He smiled slightly. Odd. I actually get that sort of thing now, thanks to my regained memories. He paused. Though I will never understand why a mobile communications device that is meant to be held in one's ear is called an iPhone. Sif chuckled, then bowed neatly. The Lady Sif, at your service. The Warriors 3 would be here, she said, glowering into the room and raising her voice to a battle shout, if they weren't so busy checking their weapons, flirting with the maids, and eating half the royal pantry again. There were scrambling noises from the room of frenzied activity, and someone falling off a couch in response. She glanced at Frigga. My apologies, my lady. Oh, don't worry. Hogan, Fandral, and Volstagg have always been this way, and always will be. It's part of their strange yet undeniable charm, Frigga said casually, as the three warriors stepped out. Hogan with a calm serenity, Fandral primping his hair, and Volstagg wiping his mouth and finishing a mouthful. Sirius, Thor said, I would like to introduce you to some of my dearest friends and best companions. The Lady Sif and the Warriors 3. Lady Sif is the finest warrior you could hope to meet and a giver of wise counsel. A better friend I could not hope for. As for the Warriors 3, the one who isn't smiling is Hogan the Grim, Thor added in undertone. I have only seen him smile once. If you manage to make him smile, I will give you anything that can reasonably be expected of me. So, not your second-born? Sirius asked in the same tone. No. Damn. All Ares access to Lily's underwear drawers out, Sirius said, trailing off as he looked speculatively at Sif, then quizzically at Thor. I wouldn't. It's where she keeps her knives. Oh, bugger, Thor said, abruptly aware that he'd walked into Sirius's trap, as Sirius began cackling and Sif skewered him with a glare. Tell me, Thor, how do you know that? Sif asked, voice icy. Frigga looked as amused as any mother will when her son has made a harmless yet hilarious verbal pratfall. Loki dared me to, Thor mumbled, wilting under the glare and glowering at Sirius. Once a marauder, Prongs, always a marauder, Sirius said, smirking. Now, carry on introducing me. Thor grumbled and then said, The blonde one is Fandral the Daring, and the one who resembles Hagrid with red hair is Volstagg the Voluminous. They are very good friends of mine. At your service, Fandral said, bowing. Any friend of Thor's is a friend of ours. Sirius bowed back. Delighted to meet you. He glanced at Thor, then back at Fandral. He grinned. So, Fandral the Dashing, eh? I bet you're a hit with the ladies, he said, voice innocent. Well, I don't like to boast, Fandral began. Sif rolled her eyes. Volstagg snorted, and Hogan raised a skeptical eyebrow at this most blatant of lies. But, yes, I am. But you haven't yet found one who's captured your heart? Sirius asked, still innocently. No. And surely one with such charm, and who takes such care in his appearance, should have one as breathtaking as he is, in both beauty and wit, Sirius says. Well, Fandral said, that would be nice. What are you getting at? Know you of such a lady? I am a wizard, Fandral, and a powerful one, as Thor, could tell you, Sirius said, drawing his wand. Thor nodded his agreement. And my chief talent is conjuration. I can conjure up for you an image of your true love. All you need do is close your eyes until I say. Fandral looked excited, then a little suspicious. This isn't going to end in me becoming something unpleasant, is it? He asked suspiciously. 1,000 or so years of Loki's friendship still instilled certain survival instincts in even the thickest of skulls. I swear that no magic shall touch your person, Sirius said solemnly. Close your eyes. Go on, Fandral, Volstagg said. It's worth it. Fandral hesitated. Imagine, Sirius said, voice hypnotic, beholding the love of your life with your very eyes. Imagine how enraptured you'll be. Imagine a great quest to find such a one, and a greater quest to woo the heart of this one. Imagine that, a story fit for the sages of old, a story to make you legend. He's good, Frigga murmured. He's just getting started, Thor replied softly, smirking. Go on, Fandral, Sif said, amused. Unless you're not brave enough. All right, said Fandral. I'll do it. He shut his eyes. Sirius waved his wand. Open your eyes and behold your true love. Fandral opened his eyes, wide with anticipation, and saw himself, or more accurately, a mirror. His jaw hung loose with shock. Volstagg cracked up, and Sif was outright laughing, and Hogan was grinning. Sirius grinned at Thor. Gotcha, Prongs, he said gleefully. You owe me. Thor sighed and prepared for humiliation. What? He asked. Well, nothing yet. I think I need to consult with this Tony Stark, your brother and your son. Maybe the Lady Sif has a few suggestions, Sirius said cheerfully. And the Warriors 3, too? And your mother? 1 or 2, Lord Black, Sif said, smirking. 1 or 2. Lady Sif, I think this is going to be the start of a beautiful friendship. Indeed, Fandral said, having recovered from his shock, and being glad that the spotlight was turning to someone else. 1,000 years of stalwart friendship and adventuring has provided us with much... What is the Midgardian turn of phrase? Oh yes, blackmail material. Volstagg grinned. Hogan grinned like a shark. Frigga looked regally amused. I'm sure that motherhood has given me certain insights that would prove useful, she said mildly. Sirius looked like he'd just hit the jackpot. Thor gulped. He was already beginning to think that this was a very bad idea. Rescue came in the form of his father, though if he had known it, Odin would probably have added a regal contribution to the teasing. Let it not be said that the Allfather does not have a sense of humor. How else would one survive children like Thor and Loki with mind intact? Thor, he greeted, accepting a kiss from his wife. Father, Thor said, tone respectful. Sif and the Warriors 3 all went down on one knee. Sirius, opting for the safe option, made a deep bow, then started staring at Odin's golden eye patch. Rise, he said. Thor, introduce me to your friend. Of course, father. Sirius, this is my father, Odin, Lord and All-Father of Asgard, Thor said. Father, this is Lord Sirius of the ancient and noble House of Black, one of my truest and noblest friends. Hi, Sirius said cheerfully. He paused. That's a very big eye patch. Shiny, too. Presumably you must have spares. Of course you do. You're a king. Still, it's very impressive. Just the right size for a king. It must be carefully polished, certainly. Thor was looking utterly horrified. The Warriors 3 were sniggering at the double entendre under their collective breath, or rather, Fandral and Volstagg were. Hogun was half dismayed, half amused by what little could be told from his expression. Sif was giving Thor a look that said, You do realize this man is a raving lunatic, don't you? Odin himself had crooked a regal eyebrow, while Frigga covered her mouth to hide her smile. Father, I beg you to forgive him. He spent the last 12 years in a terrible prison for a crime he did not commit, Thor said hastily. It, I think, has left him a little unhinged. He sighed. Though that's not quite correct. I'm not entirely sure he was entirely sane in the first place. He didn't mean any offense. Oh, I think he did. He was testing me to see what I would do, while trusting you to protect him and minimize the risk, Odin said, eyeing Sirius carefully. Sirius replied with a carefree, amiable, and innocent smile. I've seen that tactic in 2 others, Lord Black. My other son, Loki, and Mr. Stark. It requires a certain audacity, and makes me wonder if you aren't all somehow related. That would make a lot of sense, Thor muttered. Guilty as charged, Your Majesty, Sirius said, grinning. Did I pass? Odin said dryly. With flying colors, Your Majesty. You're only the second person to pick up on it, Sirius said, smirking, and Thor was abruptly reminded that Sirius only acted like he was an idiot, and that he would have made a very good Slytherin. Since you are the adopted kin to my grandson, Lord Black, you may call me Odin, in private, Odin said, tones indicating that this was a privilege, not a right. And you can call me Sirius. He also answers to Padfoot, Fido, and Dinner, Thor snarked. The rest stared at him, amused but not quite sure what to make of this. Sirius, on the other hand, let out a loud bark of laughter. And he comes out swinging, he cried, then gave Thor a sharp, shrewd look. Are there 2 of you in there, or what? Thor shook his head. James is me, as I am James. We are one and the same. I'm still integrating parts of his personality and habits into my own. That's why I sometimes seem to switch between the 2. What? Fandral mumbled to himself, confused. Volstagg shrugged. The original intention was to integrate the 2 over time, Odin said. His expression darkened. But a traitor and his master put paid to that. Sirius growled long and low. When I get hold of Peter, I'm not sure what I'll do, but it'll be slow and painful. Very slow and painful. He glanced around. I know you lot will want him, and that's fine. I just want 10 minutes alone with him in a dark room first. That got a few approving nods. While Asgard did not condone torture as part of the judicial process, this came under a blood feud, and blood feuds were a different matter entirely. Sif, why don't you, Fandral, Volstagg, and Hogun show Sirius around the palace and get to know him? Frigga suggested. I and my husband wish to speak to our son about our grandson. Thor looked dubious as the group obediently trooped off, Sirius striking up a conversation with the rest. Are you sure it's wise to leave those 5 alone? Sif will restrain them, I'm sure, Frigga said serenely. Mother, you do not know Sirius. The palace survived over a millennium of you and your brother, and the visit of Mr. Stark and Dr. Banner. I'm sure it will survive Lord Black, Odin said firmly. Thor's expression was skeptical, to put it mildly. Now, why have we not met our grandson yet? Thor sighed and launched into a round of explanations, all the while wondering what mischief Sirius was causing. and sooner rather than later he got his answer when he found Fandral and Volstagg giggling, Sif rolling her eyes, and Hogan pretending to sleep standing up so as not to be associated with the two idiots. Sirius was nowhere to be seen. Thor, Sirius has introduced us to a wonderful concept. Thor got a sudden feeling of intense foreboding. Yes, it is a noble quest that braves the deadliest dangers in the 9 realms, Fandral said. What is it? Thor asked. Hogan provided the answer in his own succinct fashion without even opening his eyes. Panty raid, Thor groaned. Who? There was a sudden dopplering scream, the sound of approaching footsteps from around the corner. A bolt of magical energy slammed into the wall, blowing a crater in it. James! Help! Get back here, you thief! Amora commands you! Oh, no, Thor said. He sighed, striding towards the corner. I'd better go and save him. Executioner! Cleave him in twain! Sirius came herring around the corner, followed closely by Scourge the Executioner. Scourge was a gigantic man, a full 7 feet tall, and vast muscles moved like breaching whales under his skin. His skin was a dusky pale color, his eyes were blue and currently murderous, and what hair he had that was not shaved off was black. He was one of Asgard's most formidable warriors and hopelessly in love with Amora the Enchantress, whose panty drawer Sirius had raided. Scourge was considered to be second only to Thor in strength in all of Asgard, with the possible exception of Vidar. But he was second for a reason, and he slowed as Sirius scrambled behind Thor, who set himself and hefted Mjolnir. Not only that, but Sif and the Warriors 3 had moved to place themselves between him and Sirius. Hold, Scourge. What's the meaning of this? This man you pursue is my close friend and honored guest and adopted kin to my son, Thor demanded. He has offended my lady Amora, Scourge growled. Stand aside, Lord Prince. No. Scourge, is he dead yet? Amora asked, tones irate as she came around the corner. With ash-blonde hair and leaf-green eyes and a figure that men had literally died for, she was as beautiful as sin, and just as deadly, with her skills at manipulation and her vast magical power. She was Scourge's puppet mistress. He would do anything for her, and she took full advantage. Unfortunately for him, she wasn't interested. Not when the mighty Thor had caught her eye. As soon as she caught sight of Thor, she smiled winsomely. Thor, my love, are you well? As well as can be expected, Thor said curtly. Call off your attack dog before the palace has a new executioner-shaped window. Amora laughed. It was a tinkling sound that put one in mind of silver bells and glass that was just on the point of smashing into lots of sharp and deadly pieces. Your Midgardian side is showing through, my love, she teased. It is adorably quaint. I'm not your love, Amora, and never will be again. Again? Sirius asked curiously. I and Lord Thor were once lovers. Thief? Amora said, wicked amusement coloring her tone. Sirius looked her up and down. I can see why, he drawled. See, Lord Thor? Even the thief cannot deny my beauty, which is rather greater than that of that mousy mortal you're always carrying on with, Amora said lightly, tone triumphant. I do not deny that you are beautiful, Amora. I'm just not interested, Thor said coldly. And mind your tongue when it strays to matters concerning Jane, or the palace will have 2 new windows. Amora blinked. Up until now, Thor had been of the wouldn't-hit-a-girl type. James, however, had fought a lot of female Death Eaters and was something of a pragmatist. My love, he gave her a cold look. We were lovers once, yes. I was young, I was stupid, I made mistakes, and you were one of the biggest, Amora. Before Amora could say another word, Sirius interjected. Actually, I was going to say you remind me of my cousin Narcissa, a prissy, self-obsessed bitch who's more than happy to open her legs to any man who she thinks is useful, he drawled. Amora went white with rage and conjured a bolt of spell flame. But before she could launch it, Thor hefted Mjolnir, and a sudden gust of wind sent her stumbling back, snuffing out the bolt. It also ruined her hairdo, which was only made worse when the James side of Thor decided to ionize the air around her with a little localized lightning. Her hair stood on end. Why, Amora, what a daring hairstyle you're wearing today, Sif said, smirking as Sirius and the warriors three cracked up laughing. All I have to ask is this. Did you consciously imitate a hedgepig, or did it just end up like that? Amora frowned, conjured a mirror, stared for a moment, and shrieked. Horribly. Scourge hefted his axe. Don't even think about it, Thor said sharply. If you want a duel, I will give you one, but not now. Leave. He paused and glanced at Sirius. Sirius, give them back. Sirius pouted. Spoils of war? Thor glared. Sirius sighed. Fine. When did you become so responsible? That is a complicated question, Thor remarked, with many answers. Sirius grunted, and pulling the lacy green arrangement out of his pocket, levitated them over. I've seen better, he muttered under his breath. Amora's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Instead, she snatched them out of the air and stalked off, doubtless planning vengeance. Sirius broke the silence. She's not like Narcissa. More like an unholy blend of Narcissa and Bellatrix. Thor found himself agreeing.